regular meeting of Monday, July 25th, 2016. Please all rise for Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we have a quorum. Can we just start voting on stuff?
Could we have a roll call, please?
Sure. Director Lohman?
Here.
Chair Reddick?
Here.
Director Kowalczyk?
Here.
And Director Slater-Carter?
Present.
We
Okay,
have
so
a quorum.
great, wonderful, thank you, Kathy. So item number 2, special order of the day. Report out on closed session of July 18th, 2016, and there is nothing to report. So item number 3, public comment. Are there any members of the public who would like to address the board? Seeing none, I'll close public comment and move to item 4. We are going to convene in closed session, and the items to be discussed include item 4A, conference with district's labor negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6, district's designated representatives, Fran Buchanan, IEDA, Employee Organization IUOE, stationary local number 39, and item 4B, public employee performance evaluation pursuant to Government Code 54957, titled General Manager. So at this point, we will ask.
I'm going to run out.
We're reconvening the meeting. Item number 5, convene an open session. There is nothing to report out of closed session. Item 6, consent agenda. And is there a motion to approve items A, B,
So
and
moved.
C?
I want to abstain on something, so it probably has to be removed from
What item would that be?
the disbursements report. I'm not going to vote for it because
Don't
at
tell me
least.
right now.
All right.
So we're pulling item B. Any other items to be pulled? Can I have a motion approving items A and C?
So moved. Second.
What happened to the rest of the board?
Well, we have a quorum, so we're going to move along. So I'm going to move item B to the end of the agenda. If that's okay with you?
We can approve it now because we've got to sign checks, but I'm
It's
not.
just for abstention purposes?
I
If it
need to
is, we can do it
state
right.
for the record why I'm not going to vote for it, and that is because it has gone in the wrong direction from an issue that I raised at a previous board meeting. There's less information
Listen,
there
I'm only going
now.
to deal with it now if you're going to keep it really concise. Otherwise, I'm going to move it to the end of the agenda.
I've just said everything I had to say about it. There's not enough information on there for me to know what the expenditures are, and I'm not going to vote for
Okay,
it.
so we need a motion and a second and a vote on item B, approve disbursements for July 2016.
So moved.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Abstain.
And show that Leonard Warren abstained from this vote. Item 7, old business. Item A, discuss revised flow measurement analysis and provide direction to staff.
At the earlier SAM board meeting, staff had presented a flow report comprising of the calibration of flow meters, then the method of flow reporting to the board, and also estimated the volume of water that had entered the sewer system during the Montara pump station construction. And at that meeting, it was discussed that staff should basically recalculate the flow without considering the Rocket Farms RO rejects, because it was discussed a couple of years back that should not be considered considered for flow measurement from any of the member agencies. And therefore, the calculations were redone, and also it was pointed out that the Portola pump station flow meter had an error of 7.5%, so 7.5%, so it was recommended that adjustments be made so that the error be brought down. So these two activities were performed, and the Portola pump station error has now been reduced from 7.5 to 1%. And then the new chart has been provided using the influent flow for calculation purposes and not considering the Rocket Farms RO reject flow.
I have a question. Do you know for a fact that their domestic flow goes into the IPS? Because I thought it went to Portola. So you need to find out definitively where their domestic flow goes. Because at the moment, I think we're getting double billed for it.
Leonard, do you want us to just be hold of this item till we resolve that?
Is there action on this tonight?
Direction.
Discuss recommendations and provide direction.
I think without full information, that makes sense.
I'm
Would
okay
you
with
like to
that.
continue this item?
Let's continue this
Just
item.
one quick comment then. At the end of this, there's this 20-column report.
What page?
Do 51 of 91 in the PDF. Can we also, once you've investigated Leonard's comments here, get like one of our old-fashioned things, you know, what is the total result of all of this? You know, there are some numbers which look sort of like what we had in the past, but now that everything has changed and all these meters are adjusted, assuming everything is perfect, and can we get one of the little charts we used to get, which is just to simplify, you know, here are the percent breakouts.
Yeah, that is also
I mean,
attached to
it's
the-
there, I know, but it's just, you know, if we could get what it was for the month of May, let's say, or whatever it was, and then May corrected, or June and June corrected.
So,
And
yeah.
then, yeah, just
So
real simple.
if I understand right, you would want revised same charts which we have provided earlier in the earlier board meetings, starting from January until,
Well, and, you know, not all of them, just one.
or just one.
Just like whatever the month was when we made the changeover. So we can just see, you know, what are the ramifications of all of this, that's all. Just keep it real simple, I mean,
Okay. We can do that.
Any other comments? If you have ideas, you want to share them tonight so that the next time this comes before us, we can give direction.
Well, there's still the issue of Frenchman's Creek, and I agree with Chuck that it doesn't make sense to spend more putting in a meter than the value of what you're metering. And so what I would propose to the board is that the agreement, which I think according to Kishen's memo dates back to 2000, be modified instead of an assumption on a fixed number of gallons, that Half Moon Bay city staff knows what the average residential flow is, and my proposal to this board is that we assume that the average from Frenchman's Creek is the same as the average for the whole city's residential, and we just count the houses, 176 I believe, and multiply the average by the number of houses and assume that that's the flow instead of the fixed number.
So you're saying change the formula?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that'll fly, but we can have further discussion on it. We talked to our city engineer about the implications, but the average is not average, right? The average of all of the city is not the average of Frenchman's Creek. And I think that is a big assumption to assume that if you take the average across the entire city, that is even approximate the average of Frenchman's Creek.
Yeah.
So I want to understand that more carefully before making a wholesale change.
Yeah, our staff would be, you know, pretty concerned that they,
You could.
know what we're talking about,
I
we can
suggested
understand.
this to Tony, but he didn't wanna do it. You could look at the average water usage of the houses in Frenchman's Creek and compare it to the average water usage elsewhere in the city and come up with a proportion. You know, if you find out that the average water usage in Frenchman's Creek is 2/3 of the city average, then assume that the sewer flow is 2/3 of the city average.
Are you concerned about the distribution not being all residential, because you have commercial as well?
Oh, I just don't want to, so we have something that's sort of working pretty well, and I would, two things, I would be a little reluctant to change it without knowing very specifically how that would impact it, or even throw error into that. And then the other thing is, just for accuracy, I don't know that it's accurate, whether it's commercial use or just different homes use different
But
water. I don't know.
But what I'm saying is the city staff has numbers specifically for residential. They know what because you build for it based on water usage.
Yeah, I
so
would
that
say
we
I'm
know
not,
all the numbers.
I'm not in support of this, but I'm willing to look
Well,
into it with
here's-
staff.
Here's
But
the-
I'm willing to look into it with staff.
Maybe we should have your general manager talk to their city manager.
That sounds good.
Well, let me state why I have a problem with the fixed number. Over the years, average per capita water usage has gone down, and that's using what's now an ancient obsolete number, which means we're getting overbilled again. Funny how all the overbillings are always against GCSD.
It's a conspiracy.
Yeah.
It is.
We
I'm
meet
glad you agree.
in closed session when you're, and when you and Rich, oh, I'm sorry, I shouldn't.
That was sarcasm, correct?
That
Yes.
was entirely sarcastic.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Yes, thank you.
And not necessarily, yeah, you could quote it. It was entirely sarcastic in response to
I mean,
the conspiracy theory.
But does the public know
you know, Oswald didn't act alone.
Keep going.
that? Yes, Scott, you look like you were going to say something?
Oh, I'm glad that we're gonna continue this. I think you raised some good questions. I wanna make sure, because we had talked about, and thank you again for coming out to Montero to meet with us and talk with us about this. I'm just gonna double back, check with our manager about, we had raised the question of, can we know how far back the big error on the meter went? So we could contemplate whether or not it's feasible in any way to adjust the numbers. Because when your meter is off is by, what, 7.5%, that, we all know that winds up on the bottom line. So I'm still very much itching to try to get an idea of just how long that error was in place. And I'm still very interested in what the calibration record history shows about when those things were touched and where that error on the calibration might have come from.
Are you looking for an adjustment?
I would like to know what we can determine.
Because you remember when we had the telemetry error between the partial flume and the recorder over
I have
here?
not forgotten.
You know,
I'd be happy to include all of those, and maybe we can get an adjustment to our $150,000 overcharge.
And all the errors that impacted Half Moon Bay that I've yet to define and discover, but if we're making adjustments, we'll have to look at ours as well.
When we
We're gonna
looked,
update
when we
them.
looked at the flow numbers and we saw a radical increase in our flow numbers with no explanation and no
Understood.
explanation from staff.
Well, we had that too. Yeah.
But understood what you're
Okay,
saying.
I mean, I think we need to get good about noticing the anomaly. I think it needs to be that the board or the member agency is never the one to be the first to point out the anomaly. And that it's the responsibility of the people who work here full-time at SAM to see it and start to root cause it early. So no one's having to talk about an adjustment because we found it early, we fixed it early. But right now, I'm like, when did it start? I mean, I can come dig through records, I know how to read, lots of detailed number spreadsheet things. I can go read engineering reports from whoever came out on site to touch those pieces of equipment. I can go see whether or not the logs are complete. And if you want, I can come root cause this problem. I don't think that's really the ideal. So I'm asking these questions more about getting us to a process place where these questions, when they come up, they're ready answers. And so that we as board members can do the board member job and not have to sit here and say, let's go run an investigation to figure out where this thing came from. Things will happen, you're right. I mean, I think as complicated as our systems are, things will happen and we're gonna have to go figure it out. That's fine, I really don't mind. What I don't wanna do though is let these things go a long time, wait for a board member to find it, and then have to go through lots of back and forth to figure out when and where and how.
well, one thing is, you kinda, dissed the mid-plant meter, but for a while we were basing the flow reports on the mid-plant meter because the partial flume telemetry was just so out of whack it was useless. And your guys know how to do the computation to adjust the mid-plant meter flow and turn it into an equivalent of the partial flume flow. The rain computation is irrelevant, it's negligible if you figure out how many raindrops fall in the surface area there. It's totally irrelevant number. And so they know what the washdown water is and whatever the other components are that you listed for why you can't use it, because you can use it and you know, talk to Tim, they know how to compute it. And so you could use the mid-plant meter as a sanity check on the other readings, and if they move at different rates, then you know you have a problem somewhere.
Okay, so do we need a motion to continue?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I was asked the direction of the board is to come back with more information. I should ask Kishan,
Yes.
do you know what you're being asked to bring forward? I mean, it might be good to make sure that we're all on the same
You
page.
want to summarize?
First
Yeah.
and foremost, staff has already checked out and found out as to when the adjustments were made before, but we've not been able to get any data. To the best of knowledge, we know that the adjustment has been done only now, and those were all factory set, in the sense when the flow meter was installed a couple of years back, the adjustment factor was actually punched in at that time. So it's only now that has been changed. So there's no record of any adjustment factor being changed in the past. We've checked all our records, and
So,
we don't know where.
I thought we
well,
did
let's bring this back and
calibrations.
talk about it next time, but the kind of thing I would like to get into is, if that's the case, what happened to the graphs? Because the graphs clearly went from stable and normal to off, you know, by a good chunk. What happened? Maybe we'll never know, but that's the question I've got. And if we never know, I can live with that, but I don't want it to be because we didn't actually try to figure it out. But I appreciate you checking the logs, and I'll look forward to our conversation next time. So that was one of the things. The other was about your question
Find
about.
out whether.
About domestic
Right.
discharge from
Yeah,
rocket farms.
Rocket Farms.
Yeah, and just an additional information on the Frenchman's Creek's estimate that we had done way back in September 2000. We had estimated the daily flow per GST single family residence as 211 gallons per day. So based on that, all those other calculations have been done.
Yeah,
So we
it's
can-
highly unlikely that's
Yeah,
still.
whatever, I mean, just giving you the data so you
Yeah,
can check and see
yeah.
what the data is right now.
Would it be practical, and I sort of expect the answer to this to be no, but I'm gonna ask anyway, would it be practical to put in a meter there temporarily, like for a month, and, you know, to get some feel for how the flow there compares to the rest of the Half Moon Bay? In terms of, you know, the flow per single family house, to see whether it's below the average, above the average. Can you put in a temporary meter?
We are exploring the possibility of installing a flow meter itself at one of the manholes to get the flow from Frenchman's Creek. Instead of installing it permanently, what we can now think of is renting a flow meter and then capturing data for some time.
Right.
We can consider that. We can
That's
check
what
out that
I'm
possibility.
asking about.
Good, we can do that.
Do you want to have costs associated with temporary versus permanent, or is that too much detail for this
Oh, I think
discussion?
that would be good to have.
We will.
Okay.
Mhm.
I think we'll get back.
Even order of magnitude,
Yeah.
just, you know, one's, just so we know, kind of relative one to the other.
Yeah.
Debbie?
Okay, I think the counselor wanted to.
No, I was trying to
Go ahead.
encourage you
I'm
to
sure
recognize.
nobody has any idea what I'm gonna say. But every time we move down another path of, we don't like the meters and this is so confusing and let's argue about it for another 6 months, I propose again that we think about that the board considers a fixed allocation on 20, 30, 50 or whatever number. We never have to deal with this again or deal with it once every 10 years. Budgeting becomes infinitely simpler, and everybody knows from year to year exactly what their allocation is, not swinging up and down all the time. So as part of the discussion, I'd like to vote on that again when we can next consider this. Thank you.
Okay. Last call. Comments? Okay, you have directions.
Yes,
And
yeah.
thanks so much for the report.
And your city manager is going to talk to their general manager about the agreement, or is that going to wait?
You're talking about the
The Frenchman's Creek.
Frenchman's Creek. I think that should happen, yeah.
So without waiting
Chuck
for
initiated.
Kitchen's investigation?
It's gonna take a long
Yeah, they
time
might as
to
well.
open, they can say hello and
Have your guy call our guy.
talk about golf and grandchildren.
So we're moving on to item 7B, a discussion of the City of Half Moon Bay response regarding the SAM recycled water project and provide direction to staff.
Was Bruce's letter distributed?
I don't see it in the packet.
No, but it was emailed.
Yeah, but I think it needs to be part of the public record for this discussion that we're about to
I
have.
think it's a critical part of the record.
Yeah. Can we get copies of
Could make
that
copies of.
Yes.
for
Thank
anybody in
you.
the public that wants it?
Everyone?
And I don't know if I can
Yes,
please.
find it in
And for the
an
public,
email
yeah.
quick enough.
We're talking about the email.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that's really good.
Shall we move on and hear any speakers on the item while we're waiting for the letter?
Sort of car.
I think their comments
Make-
might be more
may as well
relevant
do-
if they could
Yeah.
read the brief email.
Yeah. But you wanna reorder agenda items? What's,
Oh, I don't think it's gonna
Pretty
take all that long.
Just a moment.
Those sound effects.
It's putting me to sleep.
We can do something for the
Mice
kids.
have to run really fast with
That's
those wheels
right.
inside.
It's a long time since we had people in the audience who wanted to talk. Welcome.
Literally been years.
No, it hasn't.
no.
I was there.
Last year I did get yelled at a couple times, I do recall.
Yeah, of course.
And how long has it been since we had our neighbors here? You know, the people in the houses over there?
Oh,
Tree
just a
Benjamin's
couple
gone.
months.
Yeah.
Who's gone? What?
We have had people in the audience, have they gotten to speak?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I remember one woman spoke in every agenda item.
I got this side.
People complain that I
And
do
work,
that
Debbie
at
got even
FCC.
with me.
I remember there was some discussion about beaches.
Gordon, am I getting a
We all
copy of
like
the letter?
There's a couple.
That's what I
We're big
remember.
fans, we're big
That's
fans.
enough, you know.
I'll take one.
Oh,
Who's on first?
It's the one.
Oh, look, it's two-sided
Yes. Woo-hoo.
in the paper. Well, one thing you have to say about Bruce is he doesn't beat around the bush.
He writes a nice, clear communication.
I understand he's a lawyer.
It's, life is too short for long meandering letters.
Then why do lawyers always say things 3 times, you know, cease and desist?
She paid by the word.
Keep going, we're on
Belt
this
suspenders.
agenda item now.
Harvey, are you prepared to speak? You're the
Yeah.
only card we have.
Sure.
Okay. Would you like to stand up and
Stand up
identify
or-
yourself, please?
Well, do we have any staff?
Name and address?
Do we have a staff presentation? Because we should do the staff presentations
We
first.
could. Would you like to get a staff presentation first?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. So at the February 22nd budget meeting, the board authorized the general manager to submit the proposed recycled water project, phase 1, and the related budget for consideration and approval. Both Montara Water Sanitary District and Granada Community Sanitary District authorized the project and approved the project. The city of Half Moon Bay did not authorize the project. On April 21st, the city sent a letter to SAM to address these questions and concerns related to the project. Subsequent to this, SAM staff met with the member agency managers and sent out a response to the city. The city got back and issued a letter which is attached to the staff report, and therefore, in consideration with the response received from City of Half Moon Bay, SAM staff is suggesting the following: that SAM staff write a new RFP and have the city sewer engineer review it to make sure that it answers the city's concerns, and bring the new RFP back to the board at the next board meeting in August, publish the RFP and do an aggressive outreach for more engineering firms to participate. So the staff requests the board to provide directions on whether or not additional staff resources should be expended on this project.
Okay, thanks very much. So, do directors wish to ask questions of staff now, or wait till the public has a chance to speak?
Public first, please.
Okay. Harvey, could you please stand up and give your name and address? Thanks.
Harvey Rohrback, 464.
Come on over next to
What am
Carl.
I supposed to do?
Over by the microwave, but don't fall in.
Okay, I should have
Now,
realized.
closer so you can be on camera.
Closer.
Smile
Right
for
over.
the
Yeah.
camera.
Come stand in front of me.
Stand in front of you.
Yeah, there's a nice
Okay.
camera there. You can sit down.
Harvey, note that there's one mic.
What's that?
which is-
There's
one
some
mic which
microphones
is
right
here.
there.
Okay. Harvey Rohrback, 464 Pine Avenue, Half Moon Bay. This whole issue of recycled water has gone back over a decade. As a member of the Sierra Club, as somebody who's concerned about the environment, I think it's more than time to just move forward on this whole issue. And if reverse osmosis is the thing that's holding things back, then I think we should start by doing things in as cheaply and straightforward a way as possible. But the important thing is that we get something done. We can't just keep talking and talking about recycled water. We need to do something for the environment, for helping the drought issues which are gonna be coming, for saving money ultimately. This is just an important thing that needs to go forward. And even though I'm a resident of Half Moon Bay, I don't approve of the idea of delaying this project because of what Half Moon Bay objects to. So I urge you to go forward and do this as quickly as possible so that we'll have a sustainable environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Harvey. Is there anybody else that would like to address the board? Hearing none, I'll bring it back to the board members.
So just a general opinion overall, I think it is, I appreciate the comments from the public, but I know having been in all these meetings and also on the recycled water committee that all three member agencies, it's very well established that we all support recycled water and we're all trying to move forward with a project that's gonna work. And I think that's reflected in we're just trying to do the right thing. So I just wanna state my opinion on that.
Rick?
When you're ready. 5 or 6 months ago, the Recycled Water Committee agreed on a plan to move the recycled water project forward. The first key step in this project was to obtain what we call a 25% drawing package. This package would finalize the best cost estimates for all the components, including recycled water, which we call RO. It would also provide the basic drawings showing the locations of all of the recycled water components and where they fit on our land here. This financial information is a critical path step to allow us to do three things. One, complete the contracts with OCP and CCWD because we need the final numbers, and apply for loans and grants and begin the CEQA process. We need this 25% drawing package to do all of those. After we launched this plan, Half Moon Bay initiated a series of city council meetings, letters, and questions, which have been described here. These letters culminated in the recent Half Moon Bay letter stating that they were in disagreement with the agreed upon project and they would not support the agreed upon plan. Not moving forward with this agreed upon plan is putting OCP, the golf course, at risk of not having a guaranteed water supply if the droughts continues. We don't think this is acceptable because this is Half Moon Bay's largest employer and largest source of revenue for the city. Because of this, Montera and Granada have met, and we have agreed that we are going to pick up the remaining cost of the 25% design package. We will pay for this to get the project moving again. What I'd like to ask Kishan to do is to, whenever the next recycle water meeting is, whether it's the August 8th or the 15th, we want to present this to the Recycled Water Committee to get the project moving again as we designed it 6 months ago. In the Half Moon Bay response, they talk about we need a conceptual design for a facility. Okay, that's what the 25% drawing package does. That allows us to move forward with CEQA and grants financing. Their second comment is we need to develop the agreement between SAM and CCWD, and also CCWD and OCP, so that the design cost will be reimbursed. The whole process, which is now, we've wasted 6 months, was to launch the 25% drawing package exactly for that point. People complained before that we didn't have enough accurate information, although Kishan has quoted these agencies many times. We had pretty good estimates, but what we needed to move forward with the contracts to satisfy CCWD were the best absolute latest figures. Half Moon Bay doesn't even mention that in their response. But until we get those numbers, which will be provided by the 25% drawing package, we can't draw up a contract. The whole crux of the agreements is what is the cost? What is the cost that we will be selling it to CCWD, and what is the cost to OCP? Until that step is accomplished, we don't have a project. We don't have a go and we don't have a no-go. The 25% agreement, which we agreed upon with the entire committee, is the answer to that solution. So Granada and Montero will pick up the remaining $90,000, and we will move the project, and we will bring that up at the Recycle Water meeting in August. Thank you.
I'm going to allow Half Moon Bay to respond before moving on to others. Rick, would you like to comment?
A couple general comments, I asked you to chime in, but 25, so I want to be clear, super clear. You refer to Half Moon Bay, right, as if there's some opposition entity. We are trying to move forward as a city to support the recycled water project in a smart way, which is why we want a business plan and a conceptual plan. For example, RO is not mentioned in any of the proposals, period. It's not there. If you're going to design a 25% plan, 25% of what? We think it needs to be defined well, and if I'm financially accountable to make a smart business decision for our city, then I want to do the due diligence in a smart project. But let it be clear that we want this project to go forward. Let it also be clear that recycled water is back at SAM for discussion because Half Moon Bay brought it to the table when Alan Alfano was on this board with me. That's how it came back. That's how it came back to life. And I'm glad it's here. I want to move forward with it. I want to move forward with it in a smart way. But if you're going to design a 25%, if you're going to do a 25% design, I think you need to be clear going into that 25% of what. Debbie, if you have any add-on comments to that?
Well, I will say this. I personally am very happy that we're at a stage now where we actually know what the project is being proposed. And it's going to be a project that includes reverse osmosis. We didn't really know that before. CCWD came out and said, you know, this is the water quality minimum. We had a letter from Bruce Russell explaining his position on RO. And the problem we have is the RFP that went out that requested submittals by February 12th did not identify an alternative. It said, come back and evaluate alternatives. It didn't specify an alternative. The proposals that came back, SRT and Hydroscience, SRT said we're not going to even talk about RO because that's not where we're headed and it doesn't seem to be feasible. I'm not sure if feasible is the right word they used, but they basically said, you know, we're rejecting that alternative, and they listed the alternatives that they were going to evaluate, did not include RO. And Hydroscience also kept it very vague, consistent with the RFP, and did not mention reverse osmosis. So now that we know that the proposed project is either going to be a system that includes RO or the ability to turnkey RO when needed, that allows us to write a very clear request for proposals to send it to the appropriate people, that is firms that have RO experience or have RO experience on their teams. So we actually see that progress has been made. We finally have zeroed in on what we need to do to satisfy this customer and hopefully others. So we're not looking at this as an obstacle, we're looking at this as progress. And I do think that staff's recommendation is right on. I would suggest that the RFP spell out that this is going to be an RO system. I think running it by, our engineers is a really good idea so that we keep things rolling. So I'm actually pleased with the progress that's been made and with the recommendation that's made by staff tonight, so. Any other comments?
Yes.
Scott's first.
Let me take over back and forth.
We haven't heard from Ontario yet.
So, I've been here for the whole time. Going back to 2010, when we kicked off recycled water efforts. It's been 13 years. I'm a patient man. But I'm gonna give you a few things, and I'm gonna take a little bit of time, and I'll just warn you ahead of time. I think the time for that patience to turn into very direct, strong agitation is upon us. When I read the city response, well, let me back up a little bit. The reason that we went to each of the agencies to try to get funding to take it to a 25% design was for one reason and one reason only. And that reason was that CCWD insisted that they would not enter into discussions about the contract until they had a 25% design. And as I've said here, but maybe some of you haven't heard this before, we do all sorts of projects of this size with far less than 25% design. It is entirely normal and acceptable in public practice to get a reasonable piece of design work done and then do an up or down decision and then move forward. There are, in those 10% designs, call it, there are contingencies identified, there's budget to deal with the uncertainties. The further you go down the design path, the narrower those uncertainties get. But you still have some contingency that you gotta put in there because you never know what you're gonna find sometimes until you're on the ground. I recall a project that we did where we went to lay some boxes into the dirt, some big concrete boxes, and we figured out that the crane that was necessary to do that was gonna get too close to power lines. You know what? I'm really glad we noticed that before that turned into a problem, and it cost a little more to deal with it, but for very good reason we made an adjustment. There's always gonna be contingencies. The question about 10 or 25%, this agency and the agency to which I'm elected have done all sorts of projects on 10% design. It's not unusual at all. We made an allowance for CCWD's insistence because, as they have been insisting for a long time, they needed to be that partner on the other side of the fence. And they felt that that was necessary. We expressed some dismay at the time because we knew that would add time to this whole thing. But since it was going to be a path that we were going down anyway, fine, we'll just move that into, just advance the money, go ahead and get that going, that'll get things going. Now that was February. It is now the end of July. And what we've got is the city telling us a bunch of things that aren't true. RO has been a topic of discussion for some time. The most recent SAM package that was delivered to the city of Half Moon Bay had specific provisions for RO. And how do I know this? Among other things, I have this letter that Bruce Russell sent, a correction letter. Now, I've been in this business a long time, and I don't know many of these letters that ever have been put into the public record, but there are things in here that the public needs to know and support why I'm so darn agitated. And I believe Rick expressed a bit as well, and I think we're speaking from the same set of facts here. He ends up saying, I want to clarify this issue so OCP's position is and has been clear. The sentence right before that What we did not say, did not in all caps, did not say was that we had new water standards, changed our minds, would only accept RO water, couldn't live with just microfiltration, etc. Point by point, he repudiates what the city is claiming has changed. And I'm sorry that the city engineer thinks that all these things have changed, but we have all sorts of good documentation, especially with the work that Keishan has done, pulling a bunch of information together. We have been discussing these things for a long time. When I was here, when I read the city response, I was about to go write this letter. Because when I read Bruce's response previously, he was like, well, here's what ideally we'd have. That'd be fantastic. But I know there's some reasons why that might not be achievable. So next in order of preference would be this. We'd have a little less of what we really want, but that would be okay. And then, but finally, given what we have to work with, the currently conceived project is fine. And if we can, and he said it then, if we can anticipate the possible addition of RO, because down the line we just figure out that the way that Bruce has volunteered to operate this facility, where maybe he gets too much ion load and he has to occasionally flush the greens with water he gets from a different source, either his own wells or from CCWD. He's like, you know, if it comes to be where my willingness to operate that way doesn't give us what we need on our grass, then we'll come back and ask for RO. He mentioned specifically the document that Sam sent over, the most recent document, has a provision for RO that would be $200,000 up front in capital cost and $100,000 operational cost. And this is the kind of thing where we can get the package that we buy plumbed so RO can be stuck on it. And what Bruce has said is, like, he might be willing to go ahead and fund putting RO on it and leaving it non-operational in anticipation of needing to turn it on. What he's talking about is operational flexibility. But we're not talking about some giant rocket science thing now. This is about speccing out a package plant, putting it out to bid, picking one, and getting it installed. The concerns about the space, the footprint on our property, you know, we've got a big chunk of property, almost as big as the triangle over here, sitting right over here. It's just vegetation right now. Pour a foundation, put more package plant on it, boom, you got more than double the space. This isn't rocket science, but what it is 5 months since we started this process of trying to get from 10% to 25% design. It ain't happening. And I'm not done. I appreciate that I'm saying a lot of things, and I appreciate that I'm gonna get some rebuttal.
I hope there's going to be constructive recommendations on your part.
The insistence on 25% design, we knew at the time would add delay. In February, we were ready to move forward. We could have had all of this out to bid, permits in hand, and construction begun well before the wet season starts this year. We could have had grant proposals submitted already. But what do we have now? Let's go back. Let's go do another RFP. Let's have more people in the mix of evaluating all this stuff. And when's that going to be done? That's not acceptable anymore. This is taking too long. We know what to do. We've done enough groundwork. It's time that we actually move this thing forward. And I think we might need to have some discussion about whether we need to go to 25 before we go. But Montera's ready to go. It sounds like Granada's ready to go. It sounds like Half Moon Bay's not ready to go, but wants to go. If you're not ready to go,
We're ready to go per staff's recommendation.
if you're ready to go, well, I tell you what, you don't have the votes. Dead certain of that. So we're not gonna go out for another RFP. What are we gonna do? We can talk about that, or we can talk about what's gonna happen about who's actually gonna drive this thing to completion.
When you say they don't have the votes, are you talking about?
Are you prepared to vote, straw poll, you're prepared to vote for putting out for a new RFP? I'm not.
Neither am I.
Oh, so you mean the votes on this?
The
board
staff
here?
recommendation
Yeah.
for tonight.
I don't see the point.
So, staff recommendation's not gonna happen as written, and we can talk about where we go from here. But we need to get this thing moving.
You don't have an RFP or proposals that identify RO as part of the project. Now, I don't see any reason to evaluate multiple alternatives when we know the technology that's required. You can greatly reduce your scope of work in your RFP by identifying, RO and the other technologies and leave out everything else. You need one alternative, one conceptual plan. That can be a site drawing to persuade us that there's enough room to do the technology.
I'm
And you
actually,
move into 25% design?
yeah, that's not gonna happen tonight.
Why would you not want to identify RO as the project?
Everybody knows that RO is on the table.
We know that
Every
RO is on the
consultant
table
we've
as an
talked
addition.
to, the idea that
It's
RO
not
is
in the
not on the
proposals.
table is absurd.
It's not in
Everybody
the
knows
proposals.
that the 25% package is going to return RO data. That's
not
part of
what-
the cost.
That's not what they have proposed.
You know what?
I
All
also
of this
said
comes
in
from the
I also
board.
said in the recycled water meeting where the discussion was, RO is, the whole discussion was, RO is not feasible. So I want it to be feasible. If that's what we have to have, then let's have a proposal that will accommodate that.
4 agencies are perfectly happy with moving this thing, and we're 6 months ago. 1 agency is not happy, and they're saying not only are they not gonna follow the plan, but they need total approval of all of the steps, all by themselves. If Half Moon Bay isn't happy with the RFP, it's not gonna happen.
We want to make
So
sure.
what we're saying, we wanna move the project forward, we're willing to pay for it, like we did in the past. We will move it forward. All the answers you want will be available for you to evaluate when we get the results back. You will see all the RO information, you will see a 25% drawing. We will have the best cost estimates that are available that it will allow us to write the contracts that Half Moon Bay says to write without even knowledge of what the costs are.
The current proposals do
The
not
answers are all
include
there.
RO. In fact, SRT says RO is not feasible for this particular project at this time.
The board set out what we wanted to see from the engineers. The board said RO was not on the table because of the cost. Feasibility was to do with the cost. The fact that an engineering firm listened to what we said and incorporated that into their work is not something that I'm willing to have someone insinuate comes from some kind of, I don't know what, but I don't like the insinuation.
Well, we don't like back of the envelope calculations. We have to protect our ratepayers.
You know,
We want a business plan.
So
showing
many
it's
of the questions that
financially
Half Moon Bay has brought to us have ignored what's on the record, in the minutes, in the agenda packets.
There is not a business plan. There is not.
Yeah,
I think
you know,
it's a pretty simple business plan.
RO is not in the proposal. Look,
It's a very simple business plan, because there's one supplier,
Yep,
one customer,
yep. Oh,
and 2 transmission.
that's right.
That's it.
That's very clear. The cost of the cost that the customer's willing to pay relative to the cost of providing the recycled water, relative to the cost of distribution, is what needs to go into the business plan. We may do a business plan and say, you know what? It's not feasible. We may do a business plan and say, or we may say it's not feasible, and we have to look to subsidize it because we want it so badly. Okay, then we're making a decision with our eyes open. We may do a business plan and say, well, this thing pays for itself and it costs less than we thought. Let's charge full force forward.
You know, I think that
Scotty, the business plan is meaningless until we do this proposal, which we have said we will pay for. Because you can't do a business plan, and all the other agencies have agreed. The thing that was holding it up was the cost. We will provide, you can't do a business plan that says, oh, we'll buy something and we'll sell something. That's not a business plan. The business plan that is required by the people we talk to in Sacramento, which is what are the costs? What is the funding mechanism? The costs will be determined by this 25%. Once we have the cost, we can write the contracts and the business plans, and we will be done with this phase of the project. If we go out for another RFP, that's a month. The value, sending it out's a month. It'll be another 3 months in addition to the 6 months we've already blown. And your biggest agency is the one who's put at risk in this. I don't understand why we're supporting your biggest employer.
Because I
You
think it's
guys
emotional.
aren't concerned
Because I
about
think
it.
it's emotional and not logical. That's why I think you're supporting it. I think it's great.
I think that's
No,
way out of
no,
bounds.
whoa.
You are-
That is way
Everybody
out of
else-
bounds.
Really?
Chair,
Yeah, I think it is.
Chair.
Let's keep this civil.
And
No interruptions.
I'm speaking honestly, I think it's very logically, a business plan and a conceptual plan makes that as the pre-step to any major project. That's just logic. We all want this thing. You know we just do, right? And I know you feel so strongly about it that you're willing to say, I know you don't agree with me, but you're willing, just want to push it forward, and we think there's ratepayers at stake, finances at stake, and we know how important this customer is to the city of Half Moon Bay more than anybody. That's our city. And we feel very strongly about recycled water, but we don't want to move forward in a way that we don't think is correct. And I think a conceptual design for the facility that meets the water quality standards for CCWD and OCP is the appropriate next step.
We do it in my business. Yeah.
Well, I'm confused.
Leonard doesn't have a chance.
Leonard.
I don't know why CCWD's water quality standards are relevant, because what's relevant is what the customer is willing to accept, not what
Noted.
CCWD
Noted.
says. And I don't care what CCWD says, I don't think they should have a say in the matter. The only thing that should be relevant is, will the customer accept the water that CCWD transports from here to the customer? That's the only thing that matters. And in his letter, the customer, Bruce, says, OCP has always preferred, which he has in quotes, water quality that would be produced by a blended water source with 35 to 50% reverse osmosis. So he's willing, and elsewhere in here he says he's willing to start out with without the RO, as long as he has the option to add it later and pay the cost. Now, and by the way, this has been distributed to all the directors, so it is now by state law, public record. My feeling on this, and I hope I don't get beat up out in the parking lot, is that we should do the concept plan, and then the agreements need to be done, and then we go do the bigger design.
We agree with that.
I don't understand, yeah, but there may be other people here that don't. I don't understand why there has to be a 25% design to do the agreements, because if we spend the money on that and then the agreements don't come together, then the sewer ratepayers are out the money.
Well, first of all,
I want to see us do the concept plan and get the agreements signed.
it doesn't have to be 25%, but you're going to want to flesh it out enough to take it through CEQA. And I manage a lot of
The
projects.
concept plan would do?
But that's part of getting this project going.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So you do a concept plan, and then you move into the design that you need to take through CEQA. That's usually,
We've
that
got
could be
a
anywhere from
concept plan.
10 to 30%.
His latest submittal to the city had essentially the concept plan where we plumb in and leave the connecting plumbing to hook the RO unit onto the end of this thing. There is no magic in that, none.
There's a bunch of bullet points in text. What we want is a concept plan, an illustration that's labeled, that shows us where things are gonna go, what the capacity is with the
No,
various
I
components,
I gave you
and
the
then you
full.
take it through CEQA.
The 25% was solely about what CCWD was insisting on.
What's this?
That was it. We didn't need it. CCWD came in and said, we want you to go spend more time and money. There is no promise, by the way, from CCWD that they will reimburse. We brought the topic up, they didn't engage. We brought the topic up again, they did not engage. We brought the topic up again, they did not engage. There is no guarantee, per the suggestion in your letter, that if we do that, that they will cover our design costs. I'm of the opinion right now that they may be having second thoughts about this. So I want to ask them. I know that if they don't want to do the project, 4 votes on this board are ready to go just pick up the project and do a deal with OCP and get this thing going. This is not rocket science. This is well-trodden path now about spec out what you need, put out for bid, get your package plant, install it, run it to the fence. And if our part has to include going from the fence across the creek, we've got some really good ideas on how to do that are highly respectful of CEQA, highly respectful of the riparian, and can be done in very short order for very low cost.
You're asking us to take your word on this. Where
No,
did $200,000
no,
come from?
no.
It's back of the envelope.
No, it's not.
It's loosey-goosey.
I'm sorry, I'm not gonna accept that characterization for our engineer's work.
So
Because
where
he's
did
sitting
it
right
come from?
there, I've seen his work, and
I'm not talking about his work.
I
I'm
am.
talking about, relying on the sort of sketchy data we have in a million different places outside of a conceptual plan.
the way you get to where you have all the clarity that you need is you decide you're gonna do the project. We have cost pretty well dialed in. We've got the general notion of where things would go on the pad, if we need to cram it in tighter or expand and create a second pad over here. I can't imagine that we're incapable of imagining what that's gonna look like, or that it would be somehow infeasible, or even horribly expensive. Pouring a foundation is not a big
We need
deal.
a conceptual plan that shows not just, the treatment system, but that shows that treatment system integrated on our current site and our current tertiary treatment. We need to see how it's going to fit together.
Have an
We have
example.
nothing.
We have tertiary treatment?
We have nothing, well, I'm sorry, secondary. But I'm saying in the treatment of our wastewater. So the recycled has to be, a piece of that is gonna be integrated on the site. We wanna know how all that's gonna work.
We
We want a
actually did that
conceptual
once before.
plan.
You mean?
Not with RO.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, it's a treatment train, and it's a treatment train. And the notion is, you pull water out from somewhere, and then you put water somewhere. And
Yeah, well, we have a very reputable engineer who is, giving us advice, and we think we're ready to move forward with an RO system, but we wanna see it in concept, and then we wanna,
can we
I have
at
a-
least
wait,
acknowledge
wait.
that the customer doesn't need RO and sent a correcting letter saying it explicitly?
Don't
he may
acknowledge that.
need it at some time, we do not acknowledge that, no.
This letter
It's not,
from Bruce Russell?
no, this letter,
You're blowing off Bruce Russell's
No,
letter?
no,
No,
your
now you're making
interpretation,
stuff up.
your
No, he's
interpretation of the
not.
letter.
That's what
No,
you
I'm
just
asking,
said.
you.
Your interpretation of the letter is different than mine. It says, if RO was financially feasible, we might go down this other road, provided that it meets the conceptual option. So RO is, according to Bruce, is a required element.
No, it is not. He says so explicitly that he does
He
not
wants it as a
require.
backup, which means we have to design
No,
for it.
he
and
You have to
No.
design for it
No.
up front.
No, I'm sorry, maybe his
I-
paragraph had too many sentences, but
Many
it
words?
is a
It's a
long
grammar issue.
paragraph.
I have a way forward if we can.
Wait a minute,
No,
I have,
no, we're not
I have,
doing
I'm
it.
I have a
gonna
quick
No, I
question.
wanted
I'm gonna call a 5-minute break for
I-
everybody to cool down.
I have a quick question
No, we're
before
gonna
we
take our
do.
break first.
She's
Thank
the
you.
chair, she can recess.
That's right. Recess
you.
5 minutes, thank you.
Okay, except that one of these wheels is locked and I don't know how to unlock it.
Pull the little lever out. When they're all unlocked, it's
Just
even
kick
more
it.
dangerous.
There we are.
Are these new chairs?
Nope.
No?
A couple months ago.
Okay. Okay. So we're resuming our meeting and our discussion about recycled water.
Okay, so I asked Keishan what the size of a recycled water unit is.
You mean square footprint?
Footprint, yeah. I don't care how tall it is. And so he is printing for each of us what the RO unit that would be used is. And it's roughly, if you would pass that out, Keisha, I'd appreciate that. It's maybe 10 feet by 10 feet, it's
How
not
big was the
big.
one that we trialed, that I didn't make it down here in time to
It's
see
about
it?
a car parking space.
The one that we trialed?
Yes.
Oh, I was visualizing it much bigger.
Right, no, that's why why it's
The one
very
we tried a
important
couple
to know
years ago,
that. It's only the size of an
I
automobile,
never
a
got
little
down there to
wider,
see it.
a little shorter. So, there's lots of space. Oops, wrong picture. Damn, I'm sorry. Oh, I didn't see that.
We are not speaking French at this meeting.
Yes, I do apologize.
Okay.
So I've got a couple comments.
In any event, here for the audience is from last year, June 29th, 2015. The footprint that was proposed, this is on the SAM website. And there
Say the
is
date
certain,
again?
pardon me?
Say the date again?
June 29th, 2015, and on the SAM website, there is a wonderful page on the side of the main page that says recycled water documents. And it goes all the way back to a 1950 UC study about the need for recycled water. So it does, and to give you a sense, this is 100 feet long, and this is 54 feet long. So within that, there is room to park and move around some of these things.
I'm assuming that's a not to scale concept or schematic?
Pretty close.
Which corner,
It's designed to be fairly close.
which corner of the site is that?
Let me get that for
Just
you.
right over here. It's this
Right
one.
here.
It's as you round the bend towards
Here's the
the,
tanks.
to the meter.
So essentially at the end of this
Yes.
access road?
Yeah, yeah. And so
One
it
further time
seems
I've
to
ever been
me that I'd like to get this moving. We have Senate Bill 88. Do you know if that has been extended, or if the end of the CEQA exemptions for recycled water and creek restoration water has been extended, or if it just ends on January 1?
We weren't even sure that we were, that we could enjoy the CEQA exemption.
Oh, the creek crossing we can't, the rest of it we can.
Well, with the right kind of design, I believe it can be, and that would certainly be up to CCWD, but in fact, for our part of it, we're not crossing the creek. So it would speed up the recycled water part of the process, but we've got mere months left for that. I'm not gonna look backwards at the lost grant opportunities and so on, maybe there will be more. But I think that we do have the conceptual stuff, and we need to simply be moving forward. It was Sam that wrote the RFP, right?
Yes.
In conjunction with CCWD?
Well, in fact, the RFP came to the committee and we worked it over in the committee.
With CCWD and Half Moon Bay.
There were
You're talking
people
about
at
the
this
most recent
table.
one?
There
Yeah.
were people
Yeah,
at
it
this
doesn't
table
mention RO
who
anyway.
No, no.
had constructive comments to improve the RFP.
I was asking if the RFP, so it sounds like this RO concept has come in since the RFP was co-written by Half Moon Bay, CCWD, and SAM. And again, let's
Well, we
just,
did not write it, it was written by our staff who presented it to the board. We don't write RFPs
And
or
there
scopes
was
of work.
constructive comments offered, I specifically remember, Rick, you offered some.
And we thought we were gonna be looking at a range of alternatives. We now know what the alternative is. And so we need an RFP and proposals that reflect our final choice of an alternative. And we need a concept design, it doesn't have to be hugely detailed, it has to, be based on, real-time data that show how it integrates with our wastewater treatment plant. And followed by robust design that we could actually take through the environmental compliance process.
Keisha, how much would it cost to install this RO unit? roughly? Envelope?
1 million, that's actually combined RO as well as ultrafiltration.
Oh, it's a,
It's a
so,
combined pack, it's
so
on a skid.
so it's not the $200,000 more?
No, well, this is,
The 200,000 more which OCP has been mentioning, which Bruce has been mentioning is, if we were to go only for an ultrafiltration right now, and then add an RO at a later stage, the difference would be 200,000 if we were to buy a skid earlier. You get what I'm saying? You get UF and an RO on a skid, which costs say X amount. But if you buy a UF and an RO separately, it's going to be X plus 200,000.
Okay, so this, without the RO, is already included in the plan.
Without the
This
RO,
ultra microfiltration
yes.
is already somewhere on the schematic for this.
In the plan, yes.
Yes.
In the plan as well as in the cost.
So what I think I'm hearing you say is that to add RO is not even going, is an addition to an existing piece of equipment
Yes.
that is already in the plan.
It's not in the plan, it's in the plan.
no.
The
No,
piece of
no,
equipment,
I'm getting
Let me
confused.
translate,
thank you.
talking past each other. We have a current plan that contemplates a unit on a skid that does not have RO.
Okay.
And if we want to upgrade the plan, we'd go with something like that, which has it as part of what's on the skid. So something gets purchased,
Like a
Trucked
module,
in.
yes.
dropped off, and hooked up.
Correct, you can add it like a
Just like we did
module.
with the pilot back in, when was it, '09?
Yeah, it was a while
What
back.
is a shockingly long time ago, but it was truck it in, set it down, connect the pipes, show the crew how to operate it. When you were here, Tim, and it was not a major to-do. It was a bit, it was a bit of, kind of a little bit of a letdown, because it wasn't, you just set it down and hook it up. There you go. You throw a hose into a tank to pull your water out, right? And then you gotta put it somewhere once you've treated it.
So
I thought
So-
that that package system could be packaged in different ways, where you could have one box that either had a bunch of stages in it, or
You
you
can
could
put
have
it
a
in a
box
box,
that
or you
had
can
one
have it
stage,
open like
and
this.
then, so where I'm going with this is, it could start out being just the microfiltration, and then if
Yes.
Bruce says, okay, we
Yes,
need the
this
RO,
is-
then you bring in another box.
This
and
has been in the
yeah.
documentation for as long as we've
Yeah.
been doing this. That once you have package
just-
plans like this, the only time where we had any debate at all about the kind of process train on this was when there was an insistence early on that we go with sand filtration treatment, which is like a 50-year-old technology. And,
At least.
and
it works for the
and
ocean.
literally boxes you into something that you cannot easily or inexpensively upgrade. We made the decision back in '09 that we're talking about a package plant where you spec it, you bid it, you buy it, you truck it in, you hook it up. And there has been no effective change since we did the pilot, which sat right here and worked and made water that we could test with the predecessor to Rocket Farms and with OCP, where we learned a few things about the ion loading that informed a lot of the work that we've been paying attention to this time. Nothing has changed
Okay.
about,
Other people want to talk to.
yeah,
You can have my time, Scott.
nothing's changed. This is not some extraordinarily complicated thing to do. We can buy the package without the RO or the package with the RO. When you buy a package without RO, you say leave the make sure it's plumbed in so you can hook an RO unit on the end of it. This, I'm not a water engineer, but I know that. I've been to the Water Reuse Association meetings, I've read all their stuff, I've talked to the engineers about it. It has been consistently a question of, you gonna buy this or you gonna buy that? When it comes to what we do with the water once it's been produced, yeah, we need to talk about, are we gonna use this tank or not? We need to have that conversation. Do we need to talk about, is it on the triangle pad over here, or do we need to open up this rectangular pad over here? Heavens. I mean, we're gonna let that keep us from writing grant applications?
Okay, I'd like to comment actually.
So,
So you need to wrap up.
thank you. To wrap up, since there is very clear disagreement about what Bruce means in what I think is a very clearly written email, since there is not going to be an action tonight moving ahead with the staff recommendation, I propose that we just go to the recycled water meeting on the 15th. We make sure Bruce is there, we make sure CCWD is there, and we check in with them. And we say, Bruce, can you clarify for us? And we talk to CCWD about their current inclinations and their plans, and then we take some action after that.
Well, what if we did something different? What if we have two proposals? What if we actually went to the two firms and said, you need to modify your proposals according to a project description, which is based on the RO, and we need new cost numbers. We don't want you to look at all manner of alternatives, except potentially design alternatives involving, RO, because we're gonna have to take some alternatives through CEQA in any case probably, or at least identify potential alternatives. So, skip the new RFP, but ask the two submitters to go back and redo their proposals for this project purpose. And that it needs to include a conceptual design, followed by the preliminary engineering design.
So Debbie, if I hear you correctly, you're saying, so we get, instead of a new RFP, you're suggesting the two bidders, that we get two, basically they repropose on, and the scope of the modified proposal is to include both a conceptual plan and a 25% design, and factor that in so we get both. And so we're not casting a wide net to a million people and reevaluate proposals, we're going to two entities.
Yeah, we're not just using UV and microfiltration, we're using UV, RO, microfiltration. So we don't have to look at all manner of recycling water technologies. We're looking at one, to meet the water requirements spelled out by CCWD and OCP.
And we end up with the concept plan that the city needs and the 25% design, and we can keep moving forward.
Yeah.
So,
I'm okay with that.
I'm not okay with that, and here's why. I read what seems like black letter email to me. This seems very easy to understand what Bruce is saying. And you guys are saying it says something quite different from what I'm understanding. I don't think we can talk about a changed requirements until we get clarification from the guy who wrote the email. And I don't see any point in spinning up a bunch of work if my interpretation of it is correct, which is, it's not a change in requirements. It's, he would like the world, but he's willing to accept the project is currently contemplated and signed off on by CCWD, all three of our agencies, and SAM.
He's
And-
talking about RO.
But no,
I
it's
know how to
full
read that
requirement.
part of his email, but what he said is,
What's the option?
we did not say that we had new water standards, changed our minds, would only accept RO water, couldn't live with just microfiltration, etc. That says to me that the interpretation that everything's changed and now we have to have RO is a misread of his earlier.
He wants RO there, ready and turnkey if he needs it at a minimum. You have Kennedy Cheng saying, because of the various, water quality components, that it has to involve RO, and you have CCWD, adopting that water quality requirement. I agree, it should be the customer primarily, but,
I
That's what you
don't
have.
understand the reason why CCWD would need to be specifying
It makes
things
no
that the customer
sense.
doesn't.
to design a system that does not include RO at the outset, you're going to have to evaluate it in CEQA.
Well, I would suggest that rather than try and figure out from the shadows on the cave wall what's going on, that we actually ask the makers of the shadows to come into the dark room at a recycled water committee and actually discuss it and clarify exactly what the words are. Before we ask two companies to do additional work, let's just get it straightened out straight from the customer, from the supplier and the purveyors?
We
That's
have a
exactly-
recycled water committee meeting established for August
That
15th.
was
Let's
exactly
just-
my
And we're
proposal.
gonna talk about recycled water.
So let's just,
So-
So I do have a question,
Can we-
question.
let's just
Can we
close
be
this
sure
item.
that the meeting is videoed? This is a critical one, and sometimes
Steve,
the
Yes, I
ball's
think
been
there should be
dropped.
minutes taken.
Sometimes the
Yes.
ball's been dropped on the video.
So I
This
have
is
a question.
critical.
So-
You said something about RO has to be considered for CEQA. Why?
Because you can't segment your projects. If there's a reasonable, foreseeable chance that you might need RO, you have to evaluate it in your initial CEQA document.
What would be changed about, for CEQA, by the addition of a piece of equipment on a site that's already been approved for recycled
More
water?
potential uses.
More potential uses, potentially more capacity,
No, less capacity, honestly.
more customers. Well, you need to evaluate it in CEQA. I guarantee you will have a CEQA lawsuit if you don't evaluate all segments of the
Well-
No, we're.
Well, you don't have to, you could also talk about, whether or not we need to evaluate the, further treatment beyond RO, because I tell you, Amgen
You don't
is
wanna be
treating-
like the fire district.
No, but it's a question,
No offense.
I have been uncharacteristically silent for a while.
Rick?
my question was sincere, I really did want to get to what you were getting at, and I think I understand that better, thank you.
So if I may, might I suggest this, that, so you're saying, bring the parties to bear, we should bring our engineer, just
Yeah.
bring your guns to the knife fight or whatever.
That's right.
Bring your stuff, show up, this recycled waters meeting summit, and we'll get further clarification there, and hopefully we can move forward.
Sure.
In the meantime, I would also suggest that we don't wait, and we direct staff to ask the two bidders to repropose on the conceptual plan and a 25% design for a system that has a RO component.
Right.
And so we can actually start that process before August 15th, whenever that meeting is, so we're parallel pathing at least.
And you can skip the requirement for looking at alternative technologies, I think we pretty know what we
I'm
need.
opposed to this, until we get clarity from the customer, until we get crystal clarity
That
from the
slows us
customer.
down.
Huh?
That slows it down. We know exactly
No.
what people want.
No,
and
no,
what
Wait
they
a
no,
don't
minute,
want.
wait a
No,
minute.
No. You're
Yes, it
talking
does.
about spinning people up to go do work on what is clearly, I don't know who's reading this wrong, but one of us is. It could be me, but I don't wanna go spin people up to do work based on a document that we have clear disagreement about the meaning of. I don't think that makes any sense.
Can we ask
It's
our
2 weeks
council what
away.
that means?
No.
No,
We wanna get
It's
out of here.
2 weeks away. Let's have the meeting. 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
something like that. It's not
Three.
much.
A few.
Three.
We're gonna blink, it's gonna be time, we're gonna get in here, we're gonna have Bruce here, and Bruce can school one side of this argument.
I don't really get your focus. It's like you're focused on Bruce Russell's letter and trying to prove that the city somehow, is at fault for misunderstanding him. I think that's like hair splitting.
No.
The issue is, are we going to do a system that includes reverse osmosis per OCP's needs now and in the future, and CCWD's adopted water quality requirements for that customer? We know the answer to that question. Yes,
No,
it's
okay,
going
so-
to involve RO. So why not just direct the submitters to modify their proposals? They're gonna be shrinking those proposals. They're gonna most likely be reducing the cost of the work.
So, okay, you addressed a comment about what you believe I'm thinking or doing, so I'm gonna reply to that. I'm focused on what Bruce wrote to us, because taken one way, it means one thing, taken another way, it means another entirely different. I'm not willing,
Sure, I agree. Yeah.
well, I know we have a disagreement about this.
Yeah.
I read the plain text of his email out loud 3 times. We still have a disagreement about what it means. It would be foolish, I believe, if I were to take that disagreement and say, you know what, let's spin some people up to do some work. I think what makes more sense to me is get him in the room and let him tell us what he meant.
And if I could.
Let's get rid of the ambiguity, let's get clarity on that. Look, we've already missed this year for grant funding. We've already missed this year's
There's gonna be
CEQA
loads
cost.
and loads of grants for it.
So if I'd
Being
like
in
to
the
chime
grant
in on this, so.
How about some
so
motions instead of
yeah,
arguing?
No, I don't think we need a
I-
motion.
I
I think
don't-
we can
So,
move
excuse
on
me,
wrap
to
it
the
up.
next
Can
item.
I make my comment, please? So, I'll just sort of be clear that regardless of what is verified or clarified in the email, what you're talking about, it doesn't change the need to have a conceptual plan. So, I believe a conceptual plan will be needed. If the email is clarified, I believe a conceptual plan will be needed. If I'm 100% wrong about the email, a conceptual plan will be needed. So, what I'd like to say is, I move to direct Sam staff to request a reproposal, refined RFP from the two bidders for a project that include a conceptual plan and 25% design for a system with an RO component. And to review that with the city's sewer engineer prior to issuing, so we're all on the same page. And then bring that to a board meeting as soon as possible for review and approval and to send it out.
Well, and bring it to the recycled water committee.
And bring it to the Recycle Water Committee for review and approval before sending it out.
Yeah.
That's my motion.
Second.
What do you mean by conceptual plan?
Well, that's a discussion worth having, I think.
Thank you.
You know, it's pretty, in my environmental work, it's fairly standard, you know, and I can tell you what that is. For an engineering thing like wastewater, it might be a little different. But we could identify the components of a conceptual plan. And I think maybe that could be an agenda item for the Recycling Water Committee meeting is, you know, a discussion of the level of conceptual planning that we might want. Whether it's just a site design,
I would figure that it would include very terse descriptions of the equipment involved.
We
So,
have,
location.
concept designs.
Would it be
Let's go
more
with-
So-
than what was in July
Let's vote.
of 2015? Yeah,
Let's
let's
just
vote.
vote. on the proposal.
Let's vote.
Wait, I have a comment
So, but
on the motion. I can't support the motion because it includes the 25% design, which I'm not prepared to go forward with.
So if I
There are
may
many
clarify,
things we
it-
can't support about that
So
motion.
the clarification, if I may, so I guess it has to be in subsequent order, so the motion is meant to do a conceptual plan and then a 25% design after the conceptual plan. So it's to put the two things together, basically to bring the idea of developing a conceptual plan into the current proposals.
I still don't know what a conceptual plan is.
Well, okay, so can we just get on with it? Because what you've essentially done is restated the staff recommendation. We're
No,
not gonna vote yes on
we're
that.
not sending out an RFP, we're directing the current submitters
Let's vote
to
on this.
redo their
Let's vote.
proposals. Okay,
Let's vote
could I have a
on
roll call, please?
Director Reddick,
Aye.
Director Kwalcheck,
Yes.
Director Loman,
No,
Director Warren,
No?
Director Slater Carter,
No.
Director Boyd.
No.
Well, I'd like to make an alternative suggestion. So if we're going to have a recycled water committee meeting and we want to focus the discussion, I think what we want to do is have alternative actions for consideration. Whether it's, you know, to go out for an RFP, for a conceptual plan and design, direct submitters to revise their proposals. But I would like, you know, some discrete recommendations to focus our discussion at this meeting on the 15th. And a discussion of the level of conceptual planning, you know, I mean, there's a spectrum of things that you could include, but I don't want just a broad general discussion of recycled water and the Bruce letter. I want us to walk away with agreement on direction moving forward. So if you could provide some alternatives.
Did I hear that you wanted to have the city's sewer engineer there and that the SAM sewer engineer is not providing you with adequate advice?
We preserve the
not say
right to
that.
bring in our sewer engineer in any discussion.
I didn't say you didn't have the right. I'm trying to get to an understanding of why you would bring your own when we have a perfectly qualified engineer.
Well, thank you, Catherine, but we're gonna bring our engineer. And
Well,
I'd also
maybe we
like
should bring
the,
our engineer, and we should bring the SAM engineer, and
I think
Granada
my
can bring
intention
their
was to bring, was to
engineer
bring the
and-
resources that advise us
Yes.
and who
who
we.
could explain their position.
but then you're not happy with the SAM engineer.
Nobody said
I-
that. That-
well,
that was
I think
never
Keisha, I
stated.
think you're doing a great job.
I also do.
So,
Um,
let me just note then, I'll take a whack at this, the notion that all of this work has to be reviewed by your engineer as part of
That's a big problem.
what we vote on at this board in order for the work to be deemed any good is, you know,
We're not gonna argue this because we disagree.
I'm sorry, you're interrupting me.
Yes.
And as
I'm-
chair, I expect you to not interrupt me when I'm in the middle of forming a thought when I have the floor. I
You won't
really
see
believe the chair needs to do this
We don't run everything through Chuck.
to facilitate the meeting first
Well, I would
and
ask you to
argue,
abide by
argue,
meeting etiquette.
and argue with the person who has the floor less.
We get vetoed.
Thank you, let's move on.
Yeah, we're gonna move
I am
on.
very concerned about this.
Well, I think we need
I
an
was in the
agenda for the
middle, I was
meeting.
in the middle of making a point and I was interrupted.
Okay, could you keep it concise, please?
I, like everyone at this table, am an elected representative. I serve my constituents.
You do.
And when we have reached an impasse like this, it is time for debate. Cutting each other off, stepping on each other's thoughts as they're trying to be formed in the heat of the debate doesn't facilitate that. We have
Let's
a
all
job to
remember
do.
that.
I'm not trying to school you, I'm telling you where I'm coming from.
Okay, can you please, talk
Because-
about your
bec-
position?
I'm talking about a parliamentary issue because we're having a parliamentary issue right now. I strongly believe that when someone's got the floor, they need to be able to finish their thought.
Go ahead.
And if you think it's easy for someone who's been interrupted and then who has to like stand up against that interruption to go complete their thought, I mean, I know we've all been through that before. It's hard to finish that thought.
Would you like somebody else to talk in the meantime while you gather your thoughts?
No, I just, I'm gonna move on and just drop it, but I think I am working hard to not interrupt people, and there's been a good chunk of that going on tonight, and I'm gonna redouble my efforts to not interrupt.
I would advise all of us to try to keep our points succinct and concise and to the point, and avoid rambling where possible. And I was actually in the middle of talking about the agenda for the Recycled Water Committee meeting with Keisha.
Can I have 2 minutes?
Sure.
See, in this scenario, the customer dictates the requirement, as we all know. The customer basically needs recycled water, which is less in salts as of now. So we can reduce the salts by a couple of means. It doesn't have to be always RO. We could always do source control, that is one of the alternates.
Would you say it doesn't have to be?
It doesn't have to be RO. It doesn't, RO is not the ultimate solution to provide provide a solution to the customer. We could also, like how we have indicated in the past, we could also always do source control. We know that a lot of pump stations are contributing salts, and we know those areas which have been identified where salts are coming in. So we could possibly look at those as one of the alternates. Okay. So that's one point which I want to convey. And the other one which I'd like to say is on the going for another RFP. Instead of going for another RFP, another thought is the earlier RFP has been broken down into several tasks by both the consultants. And one of those is an alternatives evaluation, which is basically the conceptual layout. And we have a prize for that particular task. So we don't have to start the process all over again. We can take a part of the task from the earlier RFP and give it to the consultant and say, go ahead and do the conceptual layout and the alternatives evaluation, bring it back to the board for approval. And then we can take it from there. This is just a suggestion. We could discuss it in the Recycled Water Committee meeting, or we could think about it.
So Keisha, you're saying that there's some latitude in the scope of the accepted proposal to potentially pull and move over and use to develop the conceptual plan and layout of the options.
Yes, they're actually given a item-wise price for various tasks. And one of the tasks is alternatives evaluation, which both the bidders have bid. And if you read that carefully, it actually talks of conceptual layout. It talks of a conceptual layout and bring it back to the board with 3 alternatives, evaluating 3 alternatives. And then after the board's approval, then they go ahead and do the design basis, which is a 25% design. So one can always look into that and possibly go from there.
Well, that particular consultant ruled out RO. That's not in their proposal.
What do you mean?
They identified, they need to re-identify the alternatives that we're gonna look at.
Correct. What I'm trying to say is an alternatives evaluation could be alternate 1 could be with RO, alternate 2 could be without RO and with source control, and alternate 3 could be something else. I mean, that's what I'm coming up with.
I have a request. Can I see the copies of the RFPs that were received? This board has never acted on them in the 6 months since we've received
They're in
them.
the March 28th meeting packet.
Yes. March 20.
Gotcha, I was looking too early. Thank you.
So,
I thought that the sodium could also be addressed by adding gypsum, but that potentially causes other problems, but.
Well, we're not the engineers,
Yeah,
so
don't-
let's,
but I think there's potentially more than those 3. So I would like to see an evaluation of all possible mitigations for the sodium.
Exactly. After the December study that we did, we came out with a couple of recommendations, where one of them was to check on the Princeton Station area, because those were contributing to a lot of salts. And we said that if we bring that down, then we really don't need an RO.
Right.
I think the Recycle Water Committee meeting is a great place to make all these decisions, because it's 5 agencies, not just us.
well, it sounds like having 4 engineers there will make it
I
very
think it should go
deadly.
really fast.
Is it like having 5 attorneys in a room with
That's 6
10 opinions?
As long as they don't play with light bulbs, we're okay.
Ouch. I don't think we need our engineer there.
I'm gonna call this item done. We're having a recycled water committee on the 15th.
Yep.
We'll have an agenda. I don't want a general agenda that says we're gonna discuss recycled water. I'd like to break it into discussion items, and I'd like it to be televised. I'd like there to be minutes taken.
One specific item is an item for OCP to clarify their water needs, since there's some point of discussion on that. And so if we could put that up front in the agenda. I'd also like to have another item on there for CCWD after that to talk about where they are on this with respect to what they asked for initially, whether they're still on board with that or if they want to discuss any alternatives.
To be honest, I'm not clear where they're coming down. I know they adopted a water quality requirement. I still don't feel that their commitment is substantial enough. And we have guiding principles that require certain actions. I think we
That's
need.
why I want to hear from
Yeah,
them.
I think we need to bring the guiding principles as part of the staff report again, if you wouldn't mind attaching those.
If they want to, it's really at this point, do you want to go down that path or do you want us to carve another path? And I really want to hear from them about where they are, so that at this point in time, you know, it's, a lot of time has
That's fine.
passed. So if we could just have a specific thing for them to talk. I know that in, I think it was the last recycled water meeting, they were talking about a much grander plan. It would be.
Who was?
CCWD, talking about a much grander plan that would
Potable reuse, they call it.
potable reuse, which would mean they would not need a distribution system, they would just need access to get the water injected into their current distribution system, which obviously could save an enormous amount of cost at one level, but that is so far outside the scope of the current project that we're all working on. We need to say, okay, fine, if you're gonna be working on that, how are we gonna get this one done? And I think they've got some ideas on that, and I'd like to give them time to lay that out for us.
And I'd like one of the items, the final item, I guess, would be direction. We want direction, we want those to be reported in minutes, so that we're not losing the thread. We wanna maintain the thread here, so that we can continue to move forward.
Debbie, can I suggest that you ask Kishan to send out the draft agenda to the three SAM members of the committee well in advance, in case it's not the right understanding of what should be on the agenda?
Yeah, that is what is normally done for all recycled water committee meetings. I send out a draft agenda and ask if there are any additions or deletions, and then finalize it and send it out. I would do it the
Okay,
same way.
so to
And I
us,
would like the general manager to review it as well.
Definitely, I will
Yeah.
send it next week after she returns.
so to the SAM portion of the recycled group first, to set the agenda, right? And then broader distribution to the
Yes.
group at large. Just make sure we're on the same page on that.
And not like a couple of days before the meeting, if we could get that,
Early
and
enough that
plenty
the
of,
committee
early enough
members
so we
can
can
influence.
consult with our staffs about it as well.
But in particular, it has to be early enough the committee members can say, no, that's not what we asked for, this is what we need.
Right, yeah. And so like 24 hours notice is not enough, clearly, so. I'd like to ask staff, do you feel that direction is clear enough at this point?
Yes.
Okay, good, thank you. All right, so we're gonna move on, believe it or not, to item 8, new business. And the first item is authorize the general manager to execute a contract with RF McDonald Company for partial removal and replacement of 4-inch flare gas pipeline from boiler room to flare and an amount not to exceed $31,500. Keisha?
Yeah, this is basically the waste gas flare line. Presently, the present design has got a number of errors. It's actually buried it's underground. And therefore what happens is there's a lot of condensation takes place, and it gives false alarms to the SCADA.
That's not good.
So people have to come back in the middle of the night, they get a call and they come here and then they have to manually open a valve and remove all the condensation. And therefore, staff is suggesting that we remove this underground pipe and change it to an overhead pipeline. And this was sent out to 3 potential bidders, and we received proposals only from 2 of them. The third one declined, saying that they are very busy, they cannot take it up until the late winter or something like that. So we'd like to go ahead and authorize the work to be completed by RF McDonald Company. And we are already familiar with this company. They've been doing a lot of work for us in the boiler room.
Mm-hmm.
Given that one of the quotes is almost exactly 2.5 times the other one, you have a high degree of confidence that the low bidder isn't overlooking anything and it can actually do what you want done?
Yep, we are pretty much confident because they know the job. They've been doing all the work for us for the boiler room and changing
The
some
name
valves and all
certainly
that.
rings a bell.
Pardon me?
The name certainly rings a bell.
Yes.
Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve the staff recommendation.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Item 8B, authorize the general manager to execute a contract with EOA Inc. to perform National Pollution Discharge Elimination System and Non-Domestic Waste Source Control Program analysis and assistance to update the related permits and ordinances in an amount not to exceed $60,000.
That's easy for you to say.
The NPDES permit is up for renewal in April 2017. And in the past, we have utilized outside experts to perform this required analysis and technical assistance to update the report. In fact, we had used the same agency, which is EOA Incorporated, to perform the permit updates last time.
What did we pay last time?
How much we paid last time? Off the
You
cuff.
mean for the original,
Pardon me?
the original audit you're talking about? Leonard?
No, the earlier,
Well,
a couple of years back.
the previous time we did this process, because, 60,000 kinda,
It was $5,000 or $6,000.
that's why I'm asking,
Yeah.
60,000 is like, what?
Yeah, it's substantially more.
Maybe we should wait until Beverly's here to get a more detailed explanation.
Is there an urgency associated with this item?
We could wait until the next board meeting.
So for the next board meeting, I would like specifically to know what we paid last time and if if this really is 10 times as much, we need a real serious explanation of why.
Yeah, if we can see the scope of the last project and the cost versus the scope of this one and the cost.
Yeah.
Maybe this is, maybe they just checked off last time and now they're gonna rewrite it, I don't know. I'd like to know what the scope and the cost was last time, the scope and the cost this
But
time.
this is basically,
I was gonna bring that up.
this is a buck out of everybody's pocket, or $8 out of everybody's pocket.
Well, ELA is a very reputable firm.
Okay,
But-
but if this is so much higher than last time,
Yeah.
I wanna
No, I agree.
know why.
I agree.
That's fine.
No problem.
Basically, we need a comparison of what we paid and what our scope was last time.
Yep,
with
perfect.
previous.
Mhm, that would be helpful.
Yep.
We can bring that to the board next meeting.
So we're gonna continue that item B. Item C, adopt a resolution authorizing signers at First National Bank of Northern California for electronic banking agreements.
We are establishing all the agreements in place with First National Bank to get in the current age of electronic banking with our new software that we installed. We are doing payroll here in-house now, so we need the ability to be able to transmit our taxes and our CalPERS and different things through EFT, ACH, to provide direct deposit for the employees. Currently, right now, we are not able to provide direct deposit to the employees, nor are we able to submit any payments electronically, which is, excuse me, the IRS, the Franchise Tax
Oh my
Board.
God.
ADP used to do all of that for us.
Okay.
So this resolution, the bank has basically said, all the paperwork has been filled out for the banking agreements. They wanted a resolution just stating who was authorized, and we gave it to you, Chair, because Director Warren has signed all these documents. They just want a resolution saying that Director Warren is okay to sign these documents.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. So we don't have the general manager here. Do we have a general manager report nonetheless?
No,
Okay.
I don't think so.
So do we have an attorney's report?
Not tonight.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for being here.
Welcome.
Any directors have reports they want to share?
Well, I have a question for the directors first and then for Kathy. Did anybody think that they're gonna fill out that form to get paid for the meetings? 'Cause I gotta tell you, I sent off a somewhat flaming email saying, I'm not filling out the form for regular meetings and I expect to get paid for them.
What was the form thing again? I forget.
It was, if I may, it was a form that basically would be put in front of you, just stating that you were here for the meeting, and that would generate your pay. If we do not have a form like that on record, we will be using the adopted minutes from the meeting in order to pay.
It's only been done that way for 40 years.
Well,
It's okay, I have no problem with it.
that's
Is that
part of
what
the
this
things
is
we're
here?
getting into compliance. No, that's the resolution
That's the
right there
resolution.
for the bank, is what I
Okay.
need your signature on.
And where's the form about getting
You
paid?
signed it last meeting.
We did. Sorry.
Well, because I was aware of Director Warren's opposition to the form.
Okay.
No, my
Cal-
opposition is I'm not gonna fill it out.
Well, and so that was when Beverly had contacted the attorney, and the other alternative is to use the approved minutes of the meeting to initiate the director's pay. So there will be a month lag.
So,
in the
Leonard,
pay.
is this something you can just sort of let go and fill out?
No, I will not fill out the form. There's no other agency I've ever heard of that makes the elected officials fill out a form to get the money that they're legally owed.
I did it as a coastal commissioner.
Okay.
It's the per diem. You fill out a form to get your per diem. I filled it out right there at the
I'm not aware of
meeting.
any, all right, so that's news to me.
I don't know what's on the form, but I know whether it includes board meetings or not, but I do know at Dublin San Ramon Services District that the board members will fill out a form that's about like this, it's blue and has, you put in dates and what you were doing and that sort of thing. I don't know, I have
things
no
other
idea
than
whether it
board
includes
meetings-
board meetings or not,
Okay,
so I
for
can
things-
find out.
For things other than board meetings, the form makes perfect sense.
Good, and
So do you want a month-long delay in getting your,
It
If,
doesn't,
if staff fills out the form, so all I have to do is sign it when I'm here, I'll do that, but I will not fill out the form.
can I ask a question?
please?
Like Leonard, I'm not familiar with this as any kind of requirement in any agency I'm aware of. Especially for meetings where there's roll call and typically done by staff. It doesn't seem to me to be an onerous thing for staff to say, we did the roll call and the following people were or were not present. I mean, certainly you do the work to set up the nameplates of who you think are gonna be there. I'm not sure that a notation from staff of who was present at the meeting should be insufficient to the task of justifying the, processing the payment. I do, like with everybody else, that, for extra things like mileage and other things outside of board meetings, yeah, I don't expect to be reimbursed for
where's the
anything
form I'm
that I don't
supposed to
submit.
fill out this week?
I didn't
But-
put them out.
But I don't see, it sounds like make work to me, and I don't see the
Well-
point. And so I
Or
I
excess
likewise
bureaucracy.
object to the notion that we need to add some process here when for as long as we've all been doing this, people know who showed up for meetings because staff was there and, we said present, so I don't think we need to wait. Who's putting the stricture on us that we have to have approved minutes?
My understanding is that this was a suggestion from the auditor, but it was not something that was, obviously it wasn't in findings or anything like that at
Well,
this point.
this,
It's early to
we have a
say.
new auditor this year.
Yeah,
That's-
so the new auditor suggested, I think it's a matter of having some piece of paper that demonstrates that.
Are we
no,
sure,
It will be in the
are we
audit.
sure they're not talking about things outside the ordinary course?
Those are in addition to, that form would be used for that also. And to go back to the
But
roll
the
call.
auditor's suggesting that
Yes.
for people who show up at meetings and say aye when their name is called, that they need to take an additional action
Well,
to satisfy the auditor?
the roll call is in the minutes, and the minutes are not approved until the following meeting.
There are new GASB standards going
Okay.
into effect for public agencies. They've just been put into effect recently. And it may be as a result of those
It may be.
GASB standards.
If it is, would you let us know what
I
that
will.
is?
Yes,
This
I
sounds
will.
like make work, and I don't think make work makes us a better agency.
Yeah, the GASB standards have been rewritten and.
Things have
rewritten
changed, and they're changing quickly.
Yes.
I'm gonna wrap this
For
up. Is there-
accountability.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
moved.
No,
Oh,
director's
I
reports,
apologize. I unmoved.
you unmove, and then you can move again. Two quick things, at the LAFCO meeting last week, there were, two new grand jury reports which affect coastside agencies. Both appeared to be more attack pieces and not an interesting thing. They have massive erroneous data in them. Loaded language attacking both the Harbor District and independent districts in the area. Don't want to go into any more details, everybody will be responding to those, but there's a big question, who generated the requirement for these additional grand jury reports? And why are they so slanted? It's not, anyway. The other one was, there was a meeting of the County Sea Level Rise Committee. They proposed all kinds of asset evaluations. People out here were concerned, oh, no one cares about the coast. They did 30 examples where they went into more detail, and of those 30, 5 of them were coastside. So they checked coastal trails, they talked about Fitzgerald Marine Reserve, Marauder Road. So a significant number of their, at least analyses, are coastside, so they are serious. And they're gonna pick a couple to really go into massive amounts of detail about analyses and everything like that. And the lead one is either gonna be Marauder Road or Surfers Beach,
Should
so,
it be this plant?
so no. The plant has been evaluated like another plant. They don't have to do everything on the coast. There are much worse plants that are in much worse condition than we are. So we were lumped into them. The same type of problems exist for South San Francisco as for us. But we will probably get one of the two massively detailed analysis will occur on coastside issues. So I think that was very favorable. We are getting attention. I know Supervisor Horsley is serious about working with coastside issues.
Do they video those meetings?
I don't know, but all the notes and proposals and packets are gonna be available. When I collect them, I'll get them to Sam to post on Sam's sites, and Granada and everybody else can do it. It's for the public. You can read the proposals and the little project descriptions and see what their plans are. So
Could
they
you
are
make
moving
them-
along.
Could you make sure Lisa catch them at MCC, get some, so she can put them on their
She
website?
was there.
Oh, she was there, then they'll be there.
I think she'll do it too, so. There were 6 or 7 coastside reps at least there at the meeting, so we were well represented, so. That's it.
And the grand jury report will be on our agenda in
On
August.
Sam's agenda?
Yes.
Does Sam have, I don't think Sam has to respond.
Catherine has asked for it to be on for discussion.
I have, and because
That's
many
good.
of the things that were counted as deficiencies against your district and mine
Yeah,
are actually done by Sam.
well, for the record, I have characterized the GJ report on sanitary districts as a good work of fiction.
Thank you.
Novel.
Are we adjourned?
I have a comment.
Motion to adjourn?
No.
Come on.
I want to thank Keisha for sitting in the hot seat tonight and patiently listening in and offering thoughtful comments and just make it very, very clear that I appreciate your work very much.
You're the professional in the room.
We needed an adult, so thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
What he said.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we're done.